and his crew had a great time coming out to our spot. They liked our setup, they liked using the DTS-1. We decided maybe it was now time to open this up to a broader range. Maybe we can get some of the other crews in the Southern Ontario area together, do one big event as a finale to end off the year, and they were on board right away. They raced on our setup, our DTS track. They liked it, they liked the grip of the lot. It's not a perfect lot by any means, but it works for the cars, and it's pretty level, which is very important when you're not racing with any assists. Josh has set up many crawling events on a large scale, so he was great to have on board to get some sponsors, to schedule out the day, maybe get some prizes to give away. So he was on board. Now it was time to do a big RC drag racing event rather than a crawling event. So using the Facebook group, we threw the idea out there. We wanted to crown the fastest in the Southern Ontario area. We decided to call it King of the Streets. So as expected, we had some interest in the Greater Toronto area as we're not too far out of there. But man, did people come out from all over Southern Ontario. We had people come from the Niagara area. We had people come from London. We even had people come from as far as Sudbury. Also people coming out of the Durham region, all to get to Bolton, Ontario for this one massive race. So Josh did a great job getting us 2 sponsors for the event. We had a local store, Hot Rod Hobbies, come out. They actually closed their store down for that day to show up to our event. We also had Team Zombie Canada supply us some goodies to give out as prizes at the end of the event. So we had about 30 cars turn out, which was great to see. All kinds of people coming out from around the Southern Ontario area. The format was very simple. There was no predetermined bracket. It was a random draw out of a hat. You raced your matching number and you move on if you win. We also had a first round losers bracket option. So if you were to lose in the first round, you could buy back in, and we held a mini tournament, having the winner of that mini tournament get back into the main tournament. So obviously me and the BSO were there. We didn't have our full crew, but myself, Alex, and Greg were there, as well as Matt. Matt is the lone DR10 car in our crew. Everybody else runs the Traxxas / base conversions. But Matt bought the DR10 and has started to modify it, and he was actually getting very quick leading up to this event. One of the things we were focused as a crew is, this is our territory, this is our strip here. We need to get as far as possible. We don't want to get upset at our home track. We want to defend our turf. So we were working as well as we could to kind of scout what was happening and also play with the conditions that day. It was not great conditions for this type of event. It was early September, but it was very windy, it was cloudy, there was barely any sunlight. The wind was wreaking havoc at the top end. When you really pick up some speed, it was throwing the car around. So all of us had to deal with these conditions. It was very interesting to see how everyone would adapt. So out of the BSO members, I was the first one that had to race. I was the third race of the first round. And I was taking out one of the younger guys that came out in Jacob. Some of these kids know how to drive these cars quick, and they can eliminate you really quick if you sleep on them. So here I just focused about getting out of the hole cleanly and hoping the car does the rest in the top end. I have no idea what Jacob is running or how his car is, but I don't want to find out by losing.
Did it beep, Mom? Did it beep? Yeah. You two decided to make the turn into the center at the end of the thing.
I ended up making a pretty solid pass. I had to correct a little bit off the line, but it ended up taking off. The wind pushed the car a little bit, but it was able to keep it pretty straight at the end. Moving on. Next up was Alex out of the BSO members, and he was taking on this Pro Mod Corvette from Bill.
Go now, guys. Sorry, did you have?
So Alex and Bill get off at around the same time, and they're actually side by side to the first quarter of the track. And then Alex just takes off and pull away in the top end, gets a couple cars on him. A little bit of a close race to start the tournament for Alex, but nonetheless a win, and he's moving on to the second round. Next up we had Greg, who showed us what he can do in the call-out not too long ago before this event, and continuing to get faster even after that event. He had his first race against Mark. So Greg gets a good reaction off the line and literally gets to the line first, taking out the beams. This is rare to see Greg make any sort of mistake and hit something. He really never hits anything while he's going. It's usually a very straight pass. Ends up taking out both reflectors at the end, but he got to the reflectors first. That's a win, and he's moving on to the second round. So our next BSO member was Matt to line up, and he was bringing out his orange DR10 body to start, up against John, who came all the way out from Sudbury, Ontario. Lights come down, Matt takes off, gets a little loose and ends up crossing into John's lane. That immediately gives John the win, but they decided to stay in it. And then towards the end, John curls towards our finish line tripod and completely nails the tripod. The camera was okay. We ended up having to move the camera around. The tripod, not so lucky, was gone after that. Even though John took out the tripod, he got to the line cleanly first and in the correct lane, so he was moving on, which means Matt was the only BSO member not to make it through the first round. Here was some of the action from round one for the rest of the races. Matt being the only BSO member not making it through round 1, we were all watching him as it came time for the losers bracket. Everybody that lost out in the first round had an opportunity to rebuy back in and compete in a mini tournament, with the winner of that mini tournament coming back into the main tournament. So it was do or die for Matt from here on out, and his first race in the mini tournament was against Steve. Matt changed over to his new CUDA body from the stock DR10 body he ran in the first round. Maybe a switch to the new body will give him some good luck, and it also looked good while doing it. Better control from this pass from Matt. Steve ends up losing it about halfway through the track, tries to correct, ends up flipping over. He still finishes the race just on his roof and also in second place. Great racing in that first round of the losers bracket. Matt moved on and he was taking on Alan to try to get closer to returning back to the main tournament. Man, did he follow it up with another strong pass. This one was right off the bat. He had him out of the hole, completely treed Allen, and continued to walk away down the track. You see on the top end video that he's got lots of speed coming through the line. Looked very strong, and it looked like he was going to make it back into the main tournament.
Oh, right lane takes it.
At this point, Matt's made it into the semi-finals of our losers bracket, 2 races away from trying to make it back into the main tournament. Matt taking on Josh's son, Caden, for a chance to move on to the loser bracket final.
Good job, guys. Left
race,
lane
guys.
takes it.
Bill ended up winning the other semi-final after he lost his round 1 race against Alex. So he was looking for some revenge against the BSO, taking on Matt. The winner of this race returns back into the main tournament.
Ready, bud? Let's go, Kuda. Hey, keep the comments to yourself.
Nice reaction in the right lane.
Bill absolutely hits the reaction over Matt on this one, takes off early, forces Matt to get on the throttle quicker than he probably wanted to. Matt ends up losing control, flips over that new Cuda body, ends up scraping the deflectors off the finish line. Bill, with a great pass, ends up moving on. He returns back to the tournament. Unfortunately, Matt's day was over. That wrapped up our losers bracket and our round 1 races. Make sure you like and subscribe, and stay tuned as another video will come out to take us from round 2 up to the finals of the King of the Streets in 2020.